How's it going, everybody? How's your day? Well, I just like to make this brief video, as I always say, brief. But I've been asked often what some books that I would recommend are, and I usually come up empty-handed. There are a lot of different books out there on a variety of subjects, and it really depends on what a person's interested in. But when it comes down to basic life skills and understanding meaning, there are a few that stand out and are exceptional. Yesterday, I popped on this documentary about the Little Prince, which is a book that was written back in the 30s or 40s by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I can't remember exactly how to pronounce his name. He was a pilot that flew for the mail service back in the 30s and 40s, before planes were exactly, predictable. Let's just say that there were a lot more accidents back then. But anyhow, in Africa, he would fly the mail, and through the book, you will hear some of the common themes of his life reflected in the book. But the book isn't about him. The book is about the metaphor of the child mind understanding what matters in life and what are the most important things to us, and how sometimes we don't see what we have until it's gone, and sometimes we have to build trust within each other, and within that trust and friendship things will be broken down, we will lose things, and so we expose our hearts and our hearts are broken, but without exposing our hearts we never learn what's truly important in life. So I could sit here and talk about the book itself forever, but if you haven't read it, there's no way I could possibly begin to define it. I would just like to say, if you haven't read the book, I would highly urge anyone and everyone to read it. It's written in a way that you can read it when you're young, and read it again when you're old, and you will always pick up something new on it. But there are a lot of metaphors in this book. The reason why I thought about it now was because I saw this documentary on Netflix about the book, and it moved me to tears and joy. It was such a deeper insight into the book and some opinions about it, because metaphors are difficult to express, or I should say difficult to translate. It's just like when you hear a song you really like, somebody else hears the same song, you're going to assume that there's different meanings behind the lyrics, and that's okay. Some people are much more obsessed with finding out the actual meaning behind the lyrics, but for most of us, we're good with just knowing the basics, what we pick up on it personally and how it helps us in our lives. The Little Prince was from his own planet, the size of a house. He was the only one on his planet, and he went out exploring, looking for knowledge, other people. And he came across the businessman, and the conceited man, and the king. And the common theme of the book is, why are parents, or why are adults so strange? And so that's about all I've got to really say about it. That's my recommendation of the book for today. I've had this book for a long time, and when I first read it, I didn't really think much of it. It takes experience and time in life to learn how to process some of the things that we read, and that's why rereading things is like opening a new chapter each time. No pun intended. But when I got this book, I believe that I inherited this from back in 1997 or 96. I was living in a house with a couple of friends of mine that had moved up from Texas, and we had a couple of roommates with us. One of the roommates, his name was Simon. Now Simon was, in a way, the Little Prince. He was in search of something more, and I guess most of us follow that hero's journey, if you will. But he left one day and left all of his possessions behind, including like a little Palm PDA assistant thing, which back then was kind of high tech. So he basically just left all his stuff and said he was going to go out and join a Hare Krishna group, and he did. And a couple of years later, a few months later, we were just going through his box of stuff he'd left, and I believe that that's where I got this book. It was in there. And about a year later, we found out that he killed himself. And it was one of those stories where somebody that you lived with and knew well and spent time with, that seemed that they were on their journey and going out to find their truth, and you hope the best for them, and they end up dead by their own hands. That's one of the tragedies of life, and it's one that we can all avoid, the pitfall, by not having overwhelming expectations about how things should be or will be. That life is complicated, that decisions are difficult, that we will lose love and that we will gain love, and that things aren't always the way we would like them to be. So therefore we have to alter our perception of what we think things should be. So too many expectations lead to letdowns, but no expectation leads to passivity. And so we're kind of trapped in that paradigm. We know what's important in our hearts. There's a surface argument going on in society about what's right and wrong, or color of the skin, or the the nationalism of a group. All of that pales in comparison to this one reality that we all share. This unspeakable, unapproachable, unfathomable, and unexplainable feeling that we all share together. The realization that we are all on the same journey. And it's very hard for us to come together when we feel like the world is the cause of all of our problems. In other words, not the world itself, but people. That others are the cause of where we're at. And we build up resentment. And so keeping that childlike mind, and that's why the book is so great, because it keeps that curiosity of the child's mind. He's not there to judge. He's just there to experience. And I think if we all do more experiencing and less judging, we can lead happier lives. I wish you all the best. Have a wonderful day. Talk to you soon.